What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for April 21st, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Monday edition of the podcast. Let's get right into it today because the Phillies have a bullpen problem. If you didn't watch any of the games, or if you did watch, you saw Friday night was fine, but Saturday they almost blew a 9-run lead, or I guess it's a 7-run lead in the ninth, but I think at one point they were up 9 or 10-1. And then yesterday the bullpen blew it again as Ryan Corcoran gave up a 3-run homer to send it to extras, and then Matt Strahm could not hold it down as the Phillies lose 7-5 to the Marlins. And it's a shame because Jesus Luzardo on Easter pitched a gem against his former team, went 7 innings, 7 Ks, 1 run, I think, or 1 earned run, 2 runs total. I don't know. Corcoran just hung a slider, and dude, first major league home run. Of course, it comes against the Phillies. It's a mess, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if there's anyone in AAA that can come up and, I mean, I feel like at this point can't do any worse. You got Ranger Suarez set to come back. Do you throw him in the bullpen and let Taijuan Walker continue to be the 5th starter? I mean, I almost would rather, if Taijuan's going to blow up, I'd rather him blow up early than late to blow a lead. Will Ranger do that? It's a contract year for him. So many questions about this team, and it's all bullpen related because hitting-wise, they're starting to come around. I think Bohm has like a 7-game hitting streak. Johan Rojas has been good. The weather's going to start getting warmer, so as Charlie Manuel like to say, it's going to be hitting season. But this team has a bullpen problem, and it's going to come down now. Do you make a trade and give up some of the young guys for a shot for this year? Do you mortgage the future? I mean, there's other issues besides the bullpen, but it was on full display this weekend, just between Romano, Corcoran, and I think Corcoran is an okay reliever, but I think because of the lack of wouldn't even say studs, lack of depth that the Phillies have there, we tend to overvalue him, I think, a little bit, but just not a good weekend. Yes, they took 2 out of 3, but it should have been a sweep. Should have swept them out of the ballpark. Wasted Jesus Luzardo's great game yesterday. So we'll see what happens. I do like Bryson Stott hitting in the leadoff position. I like the way the lineup is. Get some protection there. I like the way it's going. Stott, Turner, Harper, and then Schwarber. I think that's been working, so I would like to continue with that, Topper. If you're out there listening, as well, you should be. But if you're not, somebody tell him keep the lineup the way it is. But you can't even blame really the bullpen on him. He's playing the hand he was dealt. So we'll see what happens this week. But a huge series kicks off tonight against the Mets. Aaron Nola's on the mound. Christopher Sanchez is going to pitch. Zach Wheeler is going to pitch. So should be a fun one this week. Phillies, Mets. It's always better when the Mets are good at the same time the Phillies are good. But that does lead to today's question of the day. Is this a must-win series for the Phillies? Do they need to go up there and take 2 out of 3? Right now, the Mets are up, I believe, 2 games on the Phillies for first place. So if they take 2 out of 3, they'll cut that to 1. Sweep, they'll be tied. But the Braves are starting to get somewhat right. They have their own issues, and we don't need to get into that. But if you lose 2 of 3 or even get swept here by the Mets, we have some issues. So that's the question of the day. Do the Phillies need to win 2 out of 3 this week against the Mets? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Phillies sports related off your chest, but Phillies, Mets, that's how we're kicking off the podcast today. I think they do. I mean, just more so, it's obvious from a standing standpoint. They need. You can't win the division in April, but as we've seen in the past with this core group of Phillies, they've lost divisions at this point in the season. So I think from that point, it's obvious. But I think from a mental standpoint as well, I think they need to get that out of their head, because the last thing we need, and we see it with the Braves all the time, is the Braves dominate the Phillies during the regular season, but the Mets are the Mets. So I think it's a little bit of a different vibe to it, but I think they need to take 2 out of 3 just from a mental, and they got to play well. They can't get lucky, and I don't want to see them, the bullpen especially, the way it was this weekend. So let me know your thoughts. Is it a must-win series this week against the Mets? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. And while we're at questions of the day, let's recap yesterday's question today. We finished up our missing ring spotlight, spotlighting Allen Iverson, a fan favorite. And I asked you, I think these are the 2 top guys in Philly that have not won a ring. Brian Dawkins and Allen Iverson. I said, who deserves one more? And a lot of great discussion on this one. 50% said Allen Iverson. The rest were split between both, which wasn't even an option, and Brian Dawkins. But lots of love for AI. And most of the people supporting AI were talking about how much he did for that team, put everyone on his back, never had, as I mentioned yesterday, not Rodman. He didn't have Rodman either, but the Robin to his Batman. But thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. Allen Iverson deserved a ring more than Brian Dawkins, in your opinion. Had some fun with the missing rings. Like I said, it was a playoff of the NFL Network doing the missing rings show that they have. But had some fun with that. Lots of great players have come through here, and unfortunately just never got it done. AI probably being the biggest, and Brian Dawkins certainly would be a 1B if Allen Iverson is 1A. So thank you, and hopefully you had some fun with that. Today, it is draft week, so we're going to start our focus on the top Eagles draft picks from each round, starting with the supplemental today. We'll go through undrafted, and then we'll go 1st through 7th round as we get ready for the NFL draft kicking off on Thursday. Should be a lot of rumors kicking up this week. I know over the weekend and the end of last week, there was a lot of talk about A.J. Brown to the New England Patriots. I still don't think I would do it. And like I said, I caught a lot of slack for even posting that question. But, hey, it's what people were talking about. So it's NFL draft week here on the podcast. Let's do some quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, @PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont, and continue to spread the word. As a reminder, there are highlights, newspaper clips, photos, all that other good stuff on my social media, including my Facebook and LinkedIn. So if you want to see some of the plays, some of what the newspapers were talking about, that is the place to find that. All right. So, we talked Phillies, big game, or big series this week against the Mets. I think it's must win, but we'll see what you think moving ahead till tomorrow. Our winter teams are gearing up. It's NFL draft week, but while the other teams are playing in the playoffs, our Flyers and our Sixers are focusing on their draft. Flyers are looking for a coach, and we will continue to do our Tankathon as we just wait for the lottery. May 12th is the NBA. Sometime in May will be the NHL. So I ran a Tankathon this morning. The Flyers moved down to 5th. 3rd time out of the 4 times we've tried that they moved down to the 5th position. Still not bad to have a top 5 pick, especially when you have 2 others in the 1st round. And then for the Sixers, they ended the streak. They did keep their pick. They did move down to the 6th spot. Again, I think it should be a no-brainer if they get within the top 6 picks and keep that pick, especially if it's 6. You take whichever guy falls to you. It gets a little dicey if they move up, but that is our Tankathon for today. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Great things happening with their sports fan network. Go to clashingconferences.com to see how you can get involved and have your voice heard. And check out their podcast as well. Anywhere you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And then why not do some shopping? If you can hear, I have a window open. The birds are chirping. It's going to be in the 70s pretty much all week. Beautiful weekend weather-wise. Go do some shopping. Get some spring gear from Philly Goat. They have you covered. All the teams, all the sports, and even some other things that aren't necessarily Philly sports related, but tie in with the theme and the culture of the city. And I've been mentioning for a couple days now, they've partnered with Jordan Spector. And if you haven't checked out any of Jordan Spector's artwork, it's second to none. It's amazing. They have a partnership, so you can get some Jordan Spector stuff right off of Philly Goat's website. Be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, before we get into today's This Day, I'd be remiss, speaking of nice weather, speaking of spring, and speaking of Philly culture, I want to wish a very, very special happy birthday to the Penn Relays. The Penn Relays first were ran on this day back in 1895. That's right, 1895. If you're not familiar with the Penn Relays, it's, I believe, the oldest running relay race in the country. Started very, very small back then with just Penn, but pros, college, high school. I remember I was on the track team in high school through shot put and discus, and never got to compete in the Penn Relays, but a lot of my teammates participated, so we'd always take the trip down. It was a fun day, just seeing some of the, like I said, the club teams, professionals, college, high school. Is the largest, I believe it's still the largest relay carnival in the country, certainly the oldest. But happy birthday, Penn Relays, who turned a very spry 130 years old today. And for the most part, other than, I believe, a couple times during World Wars and then during COVID, it's pretty much, I know it's continuously been every year they do the Penn Relays. So shout out and happy birthday to the Penn Relays, who turned 130. First Penn Relays was run all the way back in 1895. All right, so today we're going to go back, not quite that far, but we're going to go back to 2007. And on this day in 2007, the Phillies were in Cincinnati for a weekend series against the Reds out in Great American Ballpark. And today they won 4-1. Cole Hamels went all 9 innings, pitched a complete game, gave up 5 hits, struck out a career-high 15 Reds that day. He was also, though, aided by an Abraham Nunez to Chase Utley to Wes Helms triple play. On this day back in 2007, I guess Ryan Howard had the day off, but Abraham Nunez to Chase Utley to Wes Helms triple play. Utley got involved at the plate, going 2 for 4 with a double and a home run, added 3 RBI. Aaron Rowan also added a home run for the Phils. Now, you might remember that 2007 season as the first year of sort of that golden era of Phillies baseball when they won the division. But after this game, they improved to 5-11 on the season. They were 6 games back of the Mets and in last place in the division. So, for all of our worries, as much as this is a big weekend or a big week series against the Mets, at this point, back in 2007, the Phils were 6 games back, 5-11 on the season, but did turn it around to win the division. But on this day, though, they did get their 5th win of the season, 4-1 over the Reds. Cole Hamels pitching a complete game, striking out a career-high 15, aided by the old, I guess that would be a 5-4-3 triple play. Nunez to Utley to Wes Helms on this day out in Great American Ballpark. All right, it is draft week for the Eagles. And I know, and this is something I preach all the time on here, new Philly mentality, think positive, get rid of the Negadelphia and all that other stuff. And I'm guilty of it too. Like a lot of times I'll say, oh, the worst draft picks in Eagles history or the worst signings in Sixers history. But I figured practice what I preach here and let's look at some of the best draft picks. Now, Supplemental draft picks, that's basically, it was started in 1977, and it's for players with some eligibility concerns for the NFL draft, or for whatever reason didn't enter the NFL draft. And it's different now because of NIL and the transfer portal and everything. Players are getting paid. But back in the day, if a player took money or got a car or an apartment, or hell, even had lunch with the coach, that was an NCAA violation. So some of these players, for whatever reason, lost their eligibility in college and weren't able to hit the NFL draft. So that's when it was started as a supplemental. The Eagles all time have only drafted 5 guys out of a supplemental pick. However, 2 of the guys they've drafted were studs. And first, and probably the biggest and most important supplemental draft in NFL history, occurred in 1984. And this was specifically for college seniors who had already signed contracts with the USFL. The NFL was forward thinking. They didn't know whether this was going to be a league that would continue or start. I have some things that I have lined up for this summer with the USFL that we're going to talk about. But the Eagles on this day in the first round, or not on this day, but in the 1984 supplemental draft, took Reggie White out of Tennessee. Reggie did play 2 years in the NFL or USFL for the Memphis Showboats, was able to stay in his home state of Tennessee. After the USFL folded, he came to the Eagles. He's their all-time leading sacker with 124. Ended his career with 198, which is second place, 2 behind Bruce Smith. However, if you include his 23 and a half sacks in the USFL, it's not even close. And Reggie, as we know, was the heart and soul of some of those great Buddy Ryan Eagles defenses. Just a beast among boys when he played. If you're younger and have never seen Reggie White play, go look at some of the replays. His bull rush, he would just manhandle people. Had 21 and a half sacks in 1987 while only playing 12 games. Let that sink in. One of the best all time, but the Eagles took Reggie in the supplemental draft in 1984. And then 3 years later, in the 4th round of the 1987 supplemental draft, they got another stud, another Hall of Famer. They selected Chris Carter. Now, Chris Carter only played 3 years in Philly, had an amazing career in Minnesota with the Vikings, was cut by Buddy Ryan because all he does is catch touchdowns, according to Buddy Ryan. One of the most bizarre and idiotic, insane quotes ever for cutting a player. But what we do know now, after Chris Carter was inducted into the Hall of Fame and said it saved his life. Chris was very much into drinking and drugs. Basically, if it was a drug, Chris was taking it at the time. And basically, it was a wake-up call for Chris Carter. Didn't help the Eagles any, but did save Chris's life. So, and Buddy Ryan, always known as a player's coach, completely made an ass out of himself by saying all he does is catch touchdowns. That's why we're cutting him. But he did save Chris Carter's life. And Chris, to his credit, took advantage of the opportunity, had a Hall of Fame career out in Minnesota. Did catch 19 touchdowns in 41 games for the Eagles. So there is some merit to him only catching touchdowns. But Buddy Ryan took a lot of grief for that, but did save Chris Carter's life. So those are the 2 big, and the other 3 didn't really pan out that the Eagles took in the supplemental draft. But our draft spotlight, supplemental draft picks, Eagles have had some pretty good success drafting 2 future Hall of Famers, Reggie White in 1984 and Chris Carter in 1987. Tomorrow we're going to take a look at undrafted free agents, I guess. So not really draft, but we'll kind of work our way up into the piece. But today, 1984 supplemental draft, Eagles took Reggie White. 1987, they took Chris Carter. Both of them ended up being Hall of Fame players. Reggie for the Eagles, Chris Carter mainly with the Minnesota Vikings. But we will continue our draft coverage tomorrow with undrafted free agents that the Eagles have picked up over the years. On this day in 2007, Phillies beat the Reds 4-1 out in Great American Ballpark. Cole Hamels with the complete game, striking out a career-high 15, aided by a triple play, the old 5-4-3 triple play, Abraham Nunez to Chase Utley to Wes Helms. A very happy 130th birthday to the Penn Relays. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's this weekend or if it's in May now, but the Penn Relays will be run here in Philly very, very soon. And if you haven't ever had a chance to go down, I highly recommend it. It's such a fun time, and just seeing some of the great amateur and pro track athletes in the world. Used to love kind of sitting there and seeing it. It always came down to the 4x4, the Jamaicans versus the United States. Always loved watching that. So happy birthday, Penn Relays. Happy birthday. Tomorrow is Tuesday. We will continue our 3 harsh truths that we all need, or 5 harsh truths that we all need to accept in order to be better at life. So looking forward to that. We'll have more on the Phillies Mets, but let me know, is this a must-win series for the Phillies? I think it is in more ways than one, but let me know your thoughts on that. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else you want to vent about the bullpen from this weekend, that's all fair game too. You want to talk about Eagles draft, that's fair game too. But looking forward to that. We also have our Tankathon for tomorrow for both the Flyers and Sixers. Go out and enjoy this weather today. It's my son's first baseball game tonight, so we're looking forward to that. But it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful week. So get out. Hopefully you're listening to this while you're on a walk or a run or walking the dog, something. Get outside and enjoy. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for April 21st, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Monday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.